Sometimes the thing we need to change is the very thing that prevents us from changing. And what is that thing? For me, it's resistance. The feeling of pushing against something or something pushing against you or holding you back. In the world of art, Stephen Pressfield identifies this enemy of creativity as resistance. He describes it as this destructive force inherent to human nature that rises against our creative pursuit whenever we set about taking a long-term course of action that benefits us and others. And this force that seeks to prevent us from expressing our true potential can take various forms, which I'm sure you know: procrastination, self-doubt, self-sabotage, or distraction. He says this about writing, but it goes for any serious pursuit. There's a secret that real writers know that wannabe writers don't. And the secret is this: it's not the writing part that's hard. What's hard is sitting down to write. What keeps us from sitting down is resistance. When you set a strong, clear intention, there's often a rush in the beginning, a kind of energy like, yes, I'm doing this. But then you actually start moving toward your goal, and inevitably, at some point, it starts to get uncomfortable. Wanting change is one thing, putting in the work is another. And sometimes part of the work is figuring out what the work even is. And that can be so frustrating. You start to feel this unbearable weight of uncertainty. In a way, it feels like going against yourself, the self you knew up until that point. And it's normal to feel like that. Just like any object in motion encounters friction against air, any person moving toward an ideal encounters friction within their own identity. When the habits, beliefs, and assumptions behind that identity don't support that ideal, that friction can arise as anxiety and discouragement and frustration and confusion. And we often interpret that as proof that the direction is wrong. But discomfort doesn't necessarily mean we should stop. It's just information, not something to be avoided by all means. Sometimes it's simply the experience of leaving familiar ground and entering a new territory. One of the main reasons we resist change is because we focus more on what we have to give up than on what we have to gain. Big change can read as danger because our biology, our nervous system, leans toward what feels safe. And what feels safe is often just what is familiar, predictable. A lot of that resistance comes from fear. For me, this is where I want to work with resistance instead of pushing against it. I did a lot of pushing in the past and I got a lot of pushback. So what actually helps me now is to pay attention to what in me is resisting, to give that part in me space and listen to it. Because maybe that part of me believes this change is going to take something away. Maybe it's holding on to something or protecting it. Maybe that part is simply afraid it will fail, and that means it will experience pain, disappointment, and judgment, and rejection, and is trying to keep safe from that. You can think about it this way. If you were in a group and there was a proposal for some big change that concerned everybody, and you had a real objection that nobody wanted to hear, that everybody ignored, you probably wouldn't become more open. You'd resist more. Internally, it's the same. The parts of you that resist need to be heard. They need to feel safe. They don't need more force. Otherwise, they just keep pushing back, feeding that inner conflict. When you set an intention and start moving toward it, everything in you does not align with that starts to come up. And that's a good thing. It's part of the process. We think resisting what we don't want will stop it, but we only get more tangled in it. If you resist what comes up, you're resisting, in fact, your own intention. Use what comes up in the process because it shows you what needs to be brought to light. I try to make that clear through questions like, what does this part of me think it's going to lose? What is it trying to save or protect? What does it think is about to happen if I really change? And saying that out loud and writing it down really helps because when I don't bring more clarity to it, I keep reacting to it in the same way and trap myself in the same vicious cycle. Let's say I clarified for myself what I want. That's always the first step. So I've set my intention and I start moving in that direction to act on that intention. And then at some point, I start to feel discomfort. So I'm experiencing resistance. That makes me tense around it. And I start giving meanings to it. I start to add to the story. And then very quickly, I end up focusing on the fear of not getting it, of what if this doesn't work? So I become again more aware of what I don't want than what I do want. And that amplifies my tension and resistance. Whatever I put my attention on, I get more of that. Attention is like a magnifying glass. We know this saying, energy follows attention. So when you're in resistance, you can't really observe. You're merely reacting. And when you're only reacting, you can't be open to anything new, to anything outside your habitual way of perceiving and being. You keep doing what you've always done and you keep getting what you've always gotten. For example, if I keep going over how angry that person made me feel, how they shouldn't have done that, how wrong they were, and I keep replaying that whole scene again over and over in my mind, for my nervous system, that's the same as the actual experience. I keep myself in the same emotional and mental state. And that in turn will again influence my decisions and how I relate even to the next person. Or let's say it's about money. You set an intention around finance, and then an unexpected expense happens, or you get hit with a huge bill, or money you were counting on doesn't come in, and it immediately triggers your old reaction, the fear of lacking, of not enough, like something outside is not enough, or you are not enough. Maybe you are giving then again into that belief that whenever you set about making a change in your life, everything turns against you. And then you are playing the victim card, drowning in sorrow and self-pity and looking for confirmations of that. And we know that misery loves company, inside and outside. So you're reinforcing the same self, the same stories, the same outlook on life that prevented change before. You're reinforcing the very thing you say you want to get away from. That's where I try to stop and look at what I'm making it about, the meaning I'm giving to whatever happened. Those thoughts can quickly escalate into verdicts about life and about myself and about maybe how I should just quit or switch to something else that looks easier and tempting. And if I don't catch that, my attention drifts away again. This is where I redirect it and bring myself back to what I do want, back to what I chose. I reconnect change to choice. Sometimes the problem is not the change itself, but the way you frame it for yourself. You probably know the phrase, don't let the devil know your plans. What do we mean by that? If you plan to change your life and announce it too loudly, you might wake up that inner resistance. Brag about your intentions too early and the devil will oppose you with everything he's got. It's like you have to move towards your goals in stealth mode. It's the same principle in martial arts. Not to telegraph your moves, not to let your opponent see what you're about to do. And the same in Zen. You flow with the present moment into the next one. To share something very personal here, that's actually how I go about black fasting for a longer time, like 3 or more days. I almost keep myself from fully knowing that I'm doing it. I surprise myself. I know it sounds strange, but let me explain. The moment I give too much importance, too much attention to the thought, I'm going to fast for this number of days, so basically I'm not going to eat for a long time, I might set off this internal alarm and wake up my resistance and even my expectations. So the more I turn that into a big thing, the more opposition I get before I even started. And then the external circumstances get filtered for that. I start noticing my favorite food everywhere. I might get an invitation to a nice dinner. And if I feel a bit weaker, my mind will look for reasons to quit. It's like everything around you tests you more. And plus, I don't want to make this about my willpower, because eventually I will run out of that. So the way I do it is in a not so serious way. I call it play the fool. And I'm even using my advanced skills of procrastination for it. I tell myself, I'll just eat later and focus on the task at hand. When later comes and I say, well, I've already gone so long, I can go for another hour, and then another hour. And then the day passes and I say, well, it's already late now. What's the point? So I'll probably eat tomorrow. And tomorrow comes and I say, okay, let's just see how it goes without ever forcing it. I'm just curious about the experience. I'm learning about myself. I'm listening to the body. I'm observing my mind. But I already know also there are thresholds of resistance. I recognize them. For example, I know that the first and the third day can be harder, and that's when you can easily quit. So, yes, sometimes you have to outsmart yourself not to wake up that resistance right away. Because often what scares us or throws us off is not the change itself, but the size or the suddenness of it. And it's the same with quitting a habit. The moment you frame it as, I'm quitting for a year or I'm done with this forever, you put a huge amount of pressure on yourself in that single thought before you have even started. You're bringing in the weight of all that future or even the rest of your life. And suddenly you're in a long battle with yourself. Quitting a habit often means pulling out something that has been part of your identity, of how you define yourself for a long time. And if you can't do it, if you relapse, it's very easy to turn that into a whole story about yourself and about your failure, a proof that you can't do it. And that leaves you feeling even less capable of change or even smaller in your own eyes. So instead of announcing it for a year or forever or even framing it as quitting, just postpone it. This one time, this one act, maybe just today, you can say, I'm doing it tomorrow. Reframe it. And tomorrow you play the fool again. Procrastinate in your favor. Positive procrastination, I call it. Now, when you take on a new habit by forcing yourself into a strict program or workout you're not really used to, you're more likely to struggle with it and eventually quit, especially when there's a lot going on in your life at that time, a lot of chaos. And sometimes that's exactly why you're doing that thing in the first place. But if you take it day by day, if you celebrate those small steps forward, that steady 1%, you build momentum. And then you gain confidence for the next move and the next move. If you're thinking too much about it, trying to come up with the perfect plan, instead of just starting, you're just nailing yourself to a wall. Don't think of how long or grueling a task is. Focus on the moment, on the next hour. It's always about that little something you can do now. Just sit down and write one sentence of your new book. Film 2 minutes for your first YouTube video. Get your running shoes ready for tomorrow, today. If you only have 10 minutes for workout today, it's still better than nothing. Don't scale too much too fast or it will crush you. First, get your rhythm right. Show up, just show up, show up. That's the focus. Everything else will evolve naturally from that rhythm. Reading only 10 pages a day, that's 3,650 pages a year. In 5 years, that's 60, 70 books. That's a different you. So start today, whatever it is. Don't obsess over quality yet. Get those numbers in. Focus on the small repetitions. And then one day you look back and say, man, I've come a long way. And without having to fight yourself to get there. Eventually, you want to get to the point where the habits that are directly connected to the goals you care about are just part of how you live. As unextraordinary and undebatable as brushing your teeth. You don't sit there every morning deciding if today is the day for it. You do it even if you're tired. I hope even if yesterday was messy, if you don't feel like it. Because if you don't, you know life will suck even more. Having said all that about gradual change, there are times when radical change is what's needed, what works. You know, like ripping off the band-aid or going cold turkey. And I had things in my life that I dropped just like that. One day I woke up and that was it. I know it was enough. And it depends on the person. It depends on the moment, on the context, where you are emotionally, and what kind of clarity you have in your life. But even when the change is radical, you still have to integrate what comes after, and that still needs patience. Resistance means tension. Whatever tension we're holding in the mind, we're carrying in the body too. The thing is not to respond to that tension with even more tension and interpret it as something bad. I'm not ready. I don't have what it takes. Maybe all this is wrong. You have to understand that in this process, your nervous system is deeply involved. It doesn't care about your goals and about your vision. It cares only about one thing, and that's safety. And safety is translated as familiarity, keeping things as they are. It's essential to learn how to regulate your nervous system, how to bring yourself back to a state of safety while you're dealing with chaos, while you're dealing with stress, and while you're introducing change. Bring your attention to the body, to your posture, to how weight feels, to how your breathing feels. Where might you locate the tension? Maybe it's between your eyes, maybe in the chest area or in the stomach area, or maybe somewhere else. The simple act of witnessing it without the judgment brings some softness to it. You're not trying to do something to it. You're not trying to fix it or make it go away. You simply witness it. You give it space to be. So start by feeling your body in space, and the space in your body, and the tension inside it. Feel the ground holding you. Then feel your spine. Come to your axis. Connect to the vertical and breathe there. Your space begins to expand. You become larger and the area around the tension starts to open too. There's more space to be. And when there is more space, the tension can't hold you the same way. There's relief. Resistance can be fear of the future, of what's coming, but it's also kept alive by the past you're carrying. All that guilt, all the shame, the anger, the hurt, all your past doings, their momentum, part of what we call karma. So they impose the direction, and when you try to change the direction, you face the force of all that momentum. Growing up, you had to prove yourself, earn your place, and fit different social frames, and build identity on rules and ideas that were handed down to you. You experience disappointment, you experience rejection and judgment, and those experiences became parts of you that can still try to keep you safe by keeping you small. Maybe that accumulated hurt never got any closure, any relief. You simply can't deal with inner tension and resistance by becoming harder. Just like you can't put out a fire by throwing more wood on it. You deal with them effectively through softness, through gentleness. And that gentleness is empathy. That's how you move toward unity within instead of more separation. Bring empathy to that part of you that's holding tight. The thought can be there, the bill can be on the table, and you can still be okay. You don't have to fight to survive this moment. You don't have to add to the story. And by not adding to the story, you stop sponsoring that inner war. That is a choice. Every time. If you enjoyed the video, please share, subscribe, and see you in the next one.